And I am there. And now we're doing it. Okay, and just as a reminder, we're going to have this is a nice loose session tonight. We're going to have some good conversation, I think, and we'll look at a little bit of structure. We'll learn a little bit. I learned a little bit preparing for it, so that's always a good thing. Again, with the Year of the Artist, we are working in the arts to advance community goals by integrating artist and civic problem solving. This is new for the city of Roanoke, and we really appreciate you being part of this with us this year. We are exploring. We're exploring. Boy, there's a big delay. I just heard that come back. And there's Julie and Josh. So we're exploring and we're experimenting this year. We're paying artists as we do this work. Intentionally, we're working to strengthen the network as we do this, and we're working to connect. I've met so many people this year, and it feels terrific. It's been, especially after the pandemic, it's good to kind of dig in this way. And we really want to have fun and explore with a sense of play. And we know we learn better that way. We engage with each other better that way. And I think I'm already having a lot of fun. And we want to make sure that we're, all this adds up to the creation of a learning community where it's okay not to know everything, where we dig in with a sense of inquiry. We have I think we're kind of always kind of working with a little bit of a hypothesis. We all think we kind of have a sense of how the world works and how our art works in the world. And so we're digging in, kind of trying to learn a little bit if that's indeed the case. So tonight's session, we're focusing on scoping and planning a project, and we're going to do it in the same way we've been doing the other sessions. We're going to start off with a call for inspiration, reflections, and learnings. These are, anything you want to celebrate, anything you've learned lately. Last week, we went ahead, we started sharing, we dove right into projects, and I thought that was fantastic. This week, we've already heard a little bit from Samantha that she's a full-time fellow now at the Taubman Museum of Art, and we're excited about that. Samantha is our chief communicator and network builder, so she's helping us gather stories, and we're going to be talking about those stories tonight a little bit as well. And those stories are going to be really about the work that you're doing, and we're going to be telling those in a variety of ways. So we're going to call for inspiration, reflections, and learnings. Then we're going to do some updates and notices pretty quickly. Then we'll talk about scoping and planning. And then we'll end the formal part, and we'll have a little Q&A time where if you're working on something and that something might be an application for an Art Matters grant, we can talk about that. Those are due coming up this Friday, what we think is probably going to be our last round of these. So with that, I'm actually going to stop the screen share, and we're going to see what reflections we have. Does anyone want to share anything? And we'll take about 3 of these.
Yeah, I'll share something.
Great, John. Thanks.
So this week, I was working on the I Heart Southeast sculpture, which I had received a grant, Art Matters grant for, and a community school art teacher had emailed me and asked me, "Hey, can I bring my students over and come check it out and see the process?" I was like, "Sure, come on down." And there were 6 students, and they came, and I think they were probably like 10 or 12 years old, and they were really fascinated by all the tools. I showed them the CNC machine, hot wire machine, and how we built stuff in a lot of our projects. And they were, it was fun. They were really interested, and they had a good time. They hung out for like a couple hours, and then, and I showed them the 3D printer, and one of the kids even had their own 3D printer, and so they were really cool. And it was a good experience. I haven't had that like teaching experience before with kids, so I had a good time, and so did they. So one of them asked a good question. They were wondering if the temperature affects a 3D print, and it's like, yeah, well, it does. And he was like, well, you think you could 3D print a house out of concrete in Alaska? And I was like, okay, these kids are thinking out of the box, and I really liked it. It was fun.
Oh, wow. Those are deep questions. And, we've got 3D houses that are being printed here in Virginia. And I haven't thought a bit about that, about the temperature and how that would affect it. But there are a couple in Richmond, and then there's a project that's happening in Pulaski County.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I heard that got shut down. I'm not sure what happened.
Oh, I
Yeah,
hadn't heard that yet. Oh,
yeah,
well, I'll have to dig into that. Thanks for that.
yeah.
Well, and terrific. I was telling somebody recently, I can remember when I think he was a high school student who walked across the street to my elementary school and taught us how to draw underdog. And I can draw underdog to this day, and that happened in 3rd grade. And I can picture him. I don't have that. My memory is not that great about elementary school, but I can picture this guy who helped us. And so who knows? There'll be people telling this story, 40 years from now about how they, worked with you on that 3D printing and learned about it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Who else has something? And this can be something you learned, something that you're happy about celebrating, or something you're looking forward to. And Simone.
Oh, hi, everybody. I've been watching the past videos on like double speed when they're posted on YouTube. So I've been able to keep up with everybody. I have learned something really interesting about planning, and that is all your best laid plans can totally fall apart, and you have to be flexible and adjust to the situation. I like to plan. I like to have all my T's crossed and I's dotted and have a plan and go forward and execute it and, get results. But I'm really learning more to go with the flow and be flexible and to understand the needs at hand. So that's been good for me to learn that. And I've quite enjoyed it. Even though I've been disappointed, I've learned something from it. So that's good.
Yeah, I go back, and that's a great thing to bring up tonight too, because we're going to talk about planning some. And I look at plans that I've made, and the older I get, the more I realize that by having a plan, it gives me the freedom to go away from the plan and feel confident in it. And sometimes I think it's that foundational thinking that happens, almost like in yoga, kind of the contact you have with the earth that allows you to
Yes.
expand. There's something about that plan, having it, knowing that you've gone through that process, that gives you the confidence and the strength to.
Yeah, it's about foundations. I think you're really right, Doug, that if you have those solid foundations, then you can withstand the floods and the fire and everything else that that happens in real life.
Yeah. But we're looking forward to when you've done some terrific planning with your project at the Envision Center, and this is disappointing that their Envision Center has had a bit of a delay. And I know we were eager to get that on track. I'm sure the young people there and families are eager to get that on track too. Yeah.
Yes, but it's opening October the 7th. Yes.
It's right around the corner. That's next week. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so my classes will start on October the 13th. So I just have to shuffle things about and it will be fine.
Great. Anybody else? All right, terrific. Thanks, Phoebe.
So I'm Bebe. I'm a burlesque performer in the area, and a couple weeks ago I got an email like out of the blue from BurlyCon, which is a nonprofit organization slash convention that happens every year, which is pretty much like a 3 to 4 day convention out in Seattle. And it's just a bunch of workshops and classes teaching everything and anything that has to do pertaining to burlesque. And the email said that my name came up and I was nominated to be on the anti-racism and anti-oppression department team. So my name came up for the work that I'm doing in the community. So I thought that was really great, all the way out here in Virginia. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Excellent. Yeah, that had to, congratulations. And
Thank you.
That has to feel good. And it's one of those signposts, right? That you're on the right path.
Yeah, I was like, okay, my name came up. That's pretty neat.
Excellent. You're great. Well, thank you for sharing that. All right. So I'm gonna hop back over to the screen and make sure I'm keeping on track. And I'll run through our updates here fairly quickly. Now, so we've got the fall event calendar lined up. The coaches have gotten together and planned out the trainings that they want to do. And this is the kind of, we've shared this before, kind of in the big scheme of things, but we've added some detail, and we've got some locations, and we even have registration links now. Most Tuesday nights, or a lot of Tuesday nights, we're going to be doing this still, kind of the virtual virtual conversations about our projects and about shaping the projects and such. But we are going to have some in-person workshops, and those workshops are we had that first page, and then there are 2 additional pages on there afterwards now, and this is all posted on the website. And we'll be sending out, and we sent it out again. We sent it out this morning, so you probably got it in your email. And so October 11th, Catherine Devine is going to do From Artist to Business Owner, and that's going to be where a workshop. Catherine, you want to give a 3-sentence preview of that?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So actually, Doug, I'm really happy to tell you that I met with Tom Tanner today, and he is going to be able to be part of the second workshop. So he kind of went over the plan, and we have been talking about this for a while. So he was on board with that, but he's going to join us the second workshop, which I hope we can encourage people to do the first one and then the second one, because it would be putting what we're dreaming up, into a more of a regular, genuinely like a business plan. But he'll be there to answer specific questions for people who want to open up a business in Roanoke that are artists.
Terrific. And the first workshop, there's going to be kind of a hands-on activity, right?
Yeah.
On October 11th.
Right. I'll bring all the materials. It'll be really something that I wish I could have done when I was trying to figure it out, like dreaming up and planning out what all the parts of how. I don't want to talk about it too much, because clearly it's not a thing I can talk about. So we're going to draw it. We're going to do an art class where we're going to draw it on paper, what we want to do, and kind of see it for ourselves and be able to share with each other all of the different aspects that go into being an artist, trying to make a living in Roanoke.
All right. And that's October 11th.
Yes.
And then the next week, October 18th, Katie, you want to give us the preview?
Yeah, as community artists, we find ourselves leading either teams of collaborators or community meetings. So Doug and I are teaming up to just share some practices we've learned in coordinating different networks and hosting different meetings, to share those with you all, and also open up the space for us to share with each other different ways that we've found to be effective for hosting meetings and moving forward ideas in community.
Terrific. And that one's going to be virtual. And then on October 15th, Catherine Schnabel is going to do one that's going to really, this is going to be down at Ursula's Cafe, and registration is required for it. And she's going to be focusing on kind of that shift from the artistic product to the creative process and kind of opening yourself up for collaborations. I think it's going to be an interesting workshop, and Catherine's got a background in she's a visual artist, and she's got a background in coaching. So that's kind of the first few coming up, and then November we're going to have 3 more interesting ones. We're going to have a networking session around food and art, and that's going to be really interesting. Catherine's going to have her second one, and then Katie's going to have a participatory decision-making in-person workshop. And I'm looking forward to all of these, at least all of these that I can make, and I'm really going to try to make them all. So there's a thing happening downtown. This is kind of just a fun heads up. This is part of the real interest in supporting our arts and cultural organizations, as they're still kind of struggling coming out of the pandemic. Worldwide ticket sales are down. We are working with a consultant working with the arts and cultural organizations, and he told us recently that the Edinburgh Fringe Festival is still down 30% in their sales. And so it's kind of globally, it's going to continue for the next year or more. So we're trying to do things to support the arts organizations. And this is a fun way to support them. If you're downtown, you can swing through a bunch of different stores that have a golden key that's hanging in the store somewhere. And if you find it 6 times and get a little, and all the stores that are listed have a passport, and they'll sign it for you. They'll give you a passport, they'll sign it. If you get 6 of the keys, there's a great, there's a grand prize or giveaways, there are discounts, but the grand prize has a lot of fantastic, it's like a compendium of tickets to events, passes, memberships, etc. But this is a golden key. It's happening through October 8th. And that's downtown. I can probably post the link. It's on Virginia Children's Theater is putting it together, this whole effort. So it's online there, and it's also if you look at Facebook, DRI's got it posted, and you'll probably see it coming in our newsletter as well pretty quickly. I might send a newsletter out tonight or tomorrow morning with it. October 8th, there is going to be a gospel show at Berglund Center. And this is another thing that's kind of happening. I think it's going to be a little collaborative. I was told if anybody has any kind of outreach they want to do, it's going to be I believe that's Saturday afternoon, October 8th, at Berglund Center. They would welcome arts outreach. So if anybody's got something that they are interested in getting people involved in, talking with folks, just let me know, and I'll work with you on that. Our Art Matters grants coming right up. They're due on Friday, and a number of you have been talking with. I know we've got some good projects in the works. And if anybody has applied for one so far and hasn't gotten funding for it, I know I've been reaching out to folks also saying, hey, we can talk about your grant and making it a stronger grant. Reach out to me if you're still interested in doing that. Because I think with most of them, there are ways we can tailor it, and I can give you feedback on that as well. And then the Inspired grants. This is again the opportunity to go get tickets for an event downtown at one of our cultural organizations. The grants are a maximum of $100, so you could get 2 $40 tickets and then have $20 to go out to dinner. And the idea is that by exploring how arts and cultural organizations are kind of doing outreach, by filling your creative cup with an art form and another discipline, that it might help you in your work. So we're happy to pay for those tickets if you're interested in it. And that's on our website as well. And then the third Monday Gallery Talk signups, I'm going to go find that, and I'm going to paste the link in here for us. Let's see here. I said I was going to do that. Aha. It just takes me a while to find the right window. All right. And okay, so Catherine Devine's pulled this together. If you are interested in October participating in the gallery talk, you can sign up. If you're interested in November or February, March, April, or May, you can sign up. There is space for 4 artists to talk. If you've got a portrait, self-portrait in the self-portrait project, you can talk about your work and sign up for a space. We did the first one and it was terrific. We're also doing this with sister cities. So we're learning about the sister cities as well as we do this. All right, see now I've got to go back to 2 months. There it is, I found it. Okay, so tonight we're revisiting the Artists Working in Community Guide from Springboard for the Arts. And Springboard for the Arts is a terrific organization in Minnesota. It's artist-led. Everybody on staff is an artist. And we had been working with them for the last few years, talking about how to do some of this work in Roanoke. And we started these conversations, earlier this year. So some of the spring sessions were based on artists working in community. And we talked about our values, why we want to do work in the community, how that aligns with your personal and professional goals, what skills you bring to it, what it means to do a project in community, what's the difference between doing your project in a community and facilitating a process and with a community and developing their project. And so there's a whole spectrum of collaboration. And then we talked a lot about community relationships, the stakeholders when you're developing a project, and then the rich assets that kind of every community has, every neighborhood has, resources to build from. And tonight we're going to keep digging into that. The next part, the guide is kind of broken into doing your groundwork as an artist, doing your groundwork in the community, and then thinking through your project, and then finally implementing the project. And tonight, this is so basic, but I learned something, even like right from the get-go. The fact that they break apart project scoping and project planning. And the way we have, kind of designed our artist in residence program this year, we have a few months where the artists are engaged in inquiry and kind of exploring and thinking through their project and learning in most cases. And that really is kind of the scoping phase. And then there's the planning, there's the kind of when you put together, you say, okay, well, I really have an understanding of the context of the people, of what my goals are, what the opportunity is, and then I'm going to start to plan. And so even just that, that kind of focus on the process of scoping is freeing to me, and I think it's valuable. You'll find a lot of, and I think the artists in residence in some cases, I won't speak for, well, I think it's easy for someone to say, okay, well, here's an artist and they can paint a mural, so we'll have them paint a mural. But that kind of shortchanges everything. Where that process, if we focus on it, the process might be the creative practice, it might be the artist's way of asking questions, it might be just the artist's way of framing a situation. And we believe in this creative practice, and this is kind of our hypothesis is that, yeah, we can change the way we make decisions by including more people, including people who think differently than we typically might invite into a table or into a decision-making room. And so this project scoping part is pretty critical. And I say it's freeing because a lot of times you get asked your opinion, you get asked what a solution is. And often people want to have the answer right there, right then and there. But it's okay to say, well, hold on, let me take a little bit of time and think through this. And some of the questions that we can think through are, they're all pretty simple, but what's the opportunity? What's the challenge? What's the issue? What's the problem that you want to address? And then what might be some goals around that issue or challenge? And the goals can be process oriented as well in a way. They don't have to necessarily be physical. It doesn't necessarily mean it could be that you want to get a mural on a wall. You want to beautify the neighborhood. Or it could be that you want the neighborhood to engage in a different way. That you want to increase connections between neighbors. So the goals could be very tangible, or they can be less tangible. And then, as you start thinking about it, we talked earlier about relationships, or I just kind of referred to those earlier conversations we had on the importance of relationships. But who is it in the community? If you're working on a project in the community, who's going to live with it day in and day out? If you want people to connect, who are these people that you want to connect? Kind of what's your foundation for understanding what your goals might be? Who's going to benefit from the project? And then additionally, kind of that broader context. And sometimes there are people who are active, organizations who are doing work in a neighborhood, say, partners in a space, or partners in a community. And it's sometimes, it's almost, you almost need to map it out. And that's part of those kind of the relationships. But even bigger, what are the institutions that are at play there? Are there churches in the neighborhood, or what's affected them in the past? And so there's those contexts, there's the community, those goals overall, and then and kind of that opportunity. So that thinking process can be really helpful, even before you start to say, okay, my project's going to be X. So here's my indication that we're talking. I'll close the screen. So Wendy, how would you know if you have the right scope if you're working on a project?
I can chime in. I'm really grateful to be working with sister cities. And it was really easy to learn that most people don't know what it is. When I told people I'm working with sister cities, they had no idea what that was. So it was really easy from my own experience to say, getting more awareness of this program and its history and its place in the community would be a goal that they didn't necessarily see, because they all know about it. Like, the people involved with sister cities are very involved and they all know about it. But the average person in Roanoke that I would run into were really happy to hear that I'm doing this artist residency, but they had no idea. So anyhow, so the nice thing that worked out great for me so far is my awareness of their need to be better known and their willingness to try something new and something different. So it's been a really nice experience so far. And we are planning our little ginkgo tree festival. So I wanted to share that with you all. November 5th, downtown. And you talking about how one thing can lead to the other, kind of, because this Sister Cities has a sculpture garden or court in the downtown area. It's been interesting to be able to plan an event there and also work with Downtown Roanoke Incorporated and address some of the issues with downtown, which is, homelessness and just safety. So we're going to include Downtown Roanoke in the ambassador program as part of this festival, as a way for people to feel more comfortable coming downtown. So just being able to kind of see that there's a problem that it doesn't exactly, it's not my project, but including them in my project will benefit, I hope, people feeling more comfortable. And I also, that we're right across the street from the new texture building. So it would be an opportunity to invite people to go check that out. So just seeing how one thing can actually benefit other people around you is maybe not immediately part of my plan, but I'm seeing that it's part of it now. I wish I did have a little map of it now.
Yeah. And that's a great example too. And I've been kind of watching you as you're starting to kind of set this up, and your method of scoping is kind of like throwing the idea out there. Well, hey, how about the ginkgo trees and how pretty they are? Those conversations that you have, and that's so. How about how pretty they are in November? And look, the Sister City sculpture right there. So I've watched you kind of gently proposing things, and getting the response, and then having it grow around that. And that can be tricky sometimes too. I can just imagine, maybe not that organization, but another organization, being like, well, and because we all feel this, right? Somebody comes in from outside and says, hey, more people could know about you. And you're like, I just spent 30 hours on a newsletter, and I just did this, and I just did that. And so it's easy not to hear that sometimes. So I imagine your approach is it sounds like it's been really, really, really welcomed, and kind of that kind of gentle scoping has been helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I definitely appreciate really trying to hear what they say and not being too much like, well, what do you all think? Giving them opportunity to have feedback instead of just like, this is what we're going to do. So that definitely, I was very aware of what you're saying. Having somebody come in and say, I think you should do this would be easy to get feathers ruffled, especially for an organization that's been around for a long time and has a lot of people who have invested interest for a long time. So thank you. Yeah, it's going well. I really hope that you all make a date to come down and check it out. It'll be fun.
So there's a question there's a local colors event on November 5th at Claude Moore from 5 to 7. And I think the Sister Cities events from 10 to 4. Is that
right?
Yeah. So, okay. So you can go right from one to the other.
Yeah, I'm learning about more things from being part of this, but thank you for letting me chat about that.
So, so kind of floating an idea or floating some thoughts and getting feedback for it. That can be that good indication that you've got the right scope for a project, or the right scope is starting to build. Does anybody else have thoughts on that? How you've got the right scope for a project? All right. Well, I'll head back in and share my screen again. All right. This is a quote. Liz Lerman. She's a choreographer, and she's kind of prominent. You'll see her in a lot of this stuff as you start to look into community-based arts and such. But her quote that they have in the guide is, relationship building is important for its own sake. It is just as important as the product. Sometimes relationship building is the product. And I love that. And it's so in the development of the product, is in the example Catherine just gave, the Sister Cities, she's reaching out to the ambassador program. And then when I was on the phone with her earlier, she's like, oh, and there are businesses around, and how do I connect the businesses? And it really, and Catherine mentioned the reality of some challenges that have been happening downtown. And the DRI has an ambassador program where they're trying to address them head on, where there are more people downtown to make sure it's a safe and welcoming environment for everyone. And those relationships between business owners and the ambassadors, the civic organizations, people who care about downtown, those relationships. That's what's needed to collectively problem solve. So thanks a lot, Catherine. All right, so if we've got a scope for our project, then we do the thing that we're really comfortable with, right? Kind of planning it out. And this is very simple. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time on it, but what is the action or activity that we're going to do? Who's responsible for it? What's the time frame? When do I have to have this done? And you do this in a big picture, and then you step it out with all the little tiny actions that happen, and you create that project plan, kind of do a Gantt chart if you're really into it. Where will it take place? So what is the action or activity? Who's responsible? Who are my partners that are helping me with this? Who's going to do what? When's the time frame? When's the deadline? Where will it take place? What, who, when, where, and then finally, kind of back to that why. Now, once you've thought through all that, okay, again, what's the purpose? And then if I do this, is it going to address those project goals? And that's kind of the thing you can keep coming back to. And we do this a lot with organizations, talk about, kind of we develop, okay, well, why do we want to do a project? What's the criteria? How is it going to meet the goals that we want to establish? Once we develop the project, we put it on a big flip chart, these goals or criteria, put it on a big flip chart and hang it on the wall and keep it there. So that every stage of the project, we can come back and go, okay, now we said we wanted to do this. Now, are these steps going to add up to this? Are we going to reach our why by these activities? And sometimes it's easy to get, okay, well, we're in the nuts and bolts of an event, and we're doing all that minutia, which we have to do, but sometimes we forget the big why. And so we remind ourselves, we can get the most out of a project. So right there in the planning, kind of going back to that why again in that project plan. All right, so how do you know when you've got the right plan? And this is all, and there's no right answer to these questions either, by the way. These are all kind of like personal, like usually it's a gut for me, or there's something that makes it feel right. But when you're working on a plan, how do you know when you've got the right plan? Could be a trick question.
I can share really quick. I really like this question. Part of it, to me, like we were talking about, we have these ideas mapped out of what we think needs to happen next. But I also think the right plan happens when things start lining up all on their own, and you just kind of follow where the energy leads or where it doesn't lead. Like sometimes our plans are really not working out, and that's obviously not the right plan for that moment based on how everything's changed. Yeah, so I think we probably all experienced those moments where we're like, that's just not working out, and like, wow, that flowed so easily, I didn't have to do anything for it. So I think just paying attention to the energy, and yeah, I think it requires listening to what people are sharing and telling you, and what your gut is telling you too. Yeah, so I appreciate that reflection and being willing to pivot and shift and adapt when needed.
Excellent. Yeah, that's the universe is lining things up. I saw, and Bebe gave you some applause as well. So, and so definitely felt that. Yeah. And then sometimes you're like, why I am pushing so hard and it is not, it's just not working. And sometimes it can even be just you try not to read into it a lot because people are busy, right? But you can't get everybody's dates aligned. You're trying to get everybody, set up for something. And you're like, well, wait a minute, maybe it's just not the right time yet to bring this group together. There could be a message in that even. You can't read too much into it, but kind of like Simone said earlier, at some points you've got to be able to let go and relax a little bit and say, okay, well, it's not going to happen. That's not going to happen this week. What can I do to keep it moving? And or is it the right path? Is it the right plan? And so does anybody have kind of a trusted partner in crime or a co-conspirator or someone that they usually bounce plans or ideas across? I see Casey's nodding her head. She's saying, yeah. And Josh and Julie, you've got each other. Is it?
Hey, Doug, I just want to say, I think that's one of the most valuable things that I've learned from this group is that there are people who are thinking about similar things that I can ask questions about that are more interested in the project than the random people I try to engage with that have no interest in this project, So I really want to appreciate that, being able to think things through with you all as we've all kind of worked through these different workshops has been great for me.
For me as well. Yeah. And these, if you find somebody, grab hold of them and thank them for that. Because typically I would say it's never a one-way street. It's two-way. So, I would say, I learn in every interaction. And when you're talking, you know how it is. Someone's talking to you about their project. You're also going through your mind, similar situations you're engaged in just then. And you never know what kind of cross learning you're going to have. So, that I encourage you to keep exploring those relationships. All right. And then let me head back to the screen. All right. And then, so back again to that purpose. Now you're going to see when I'm guessing this is a little prelude. I think when Katie does her effective meetings or bringing people together and talking about how you bring people together in an effective way, you're going to find some similarities between having a good meeting and putting together a good project. I feel like it builds on all the same kind of tools. So we're going to look forward to that a little bit as well. And then, so that what is the purpose? How does the project address the project goals? Like I said, we're going to keep asking that question, and we're definitely going to ask it when we wrap up our projects, right? So like, why evaluate our project? At the end of the day, you're going to have a check mark. Say you're working on a project for this or for anything. You've got a check mark. Yeah, I did it or I didn't do it. So that's one thing. But what are some of the reasons why you might want to go a little bit deeper?
Well, there's always the lesson learned at the end of a project. It's like, what you did right, what you did wrong. Maybe it'll be in an annual event, and where do you go from there?
Excellent. Yeah, that's the lessons learned. I think at a certain point in my career, like every report I end up doing or every annual report end up having lessons learned in it. That's some of the richest part, I think. And and sometimes they're, like you said, if you don't stop and debrief and kind of go, okay, what went right? What could be done better? What did we really gain from this? You might find that you're doing that collectively with folks, and that's where that energy comes to say, yes, let's do it again. And this time let's add X. Yeah. Any other reasons why you want to evaluate?
Yeah, I feel like evaluating at the end of the project, like getting that feedback, whether it's positive or negative, is really going to help you grow. And, if, the critique, at the end of a project, you get that critique and, it might be something negative or might be positive. So either way, you can grow from it in a much better way. So I think it's very important to evaluate.
Yeah, I agree. Both the positives and the plus delta, right? So the positive things, and then those deltas, like the things you could change next time. If you're going to do it again, what can we do to make it a better experience?
Yeah. I just want to say, sometimes you may think something isn't working or didn't work out the way you imagined it, but someone else could see a different positive result that you weren't even aware of. So having someone else say, well, you didn't do this thing that you wanted to do, but this other thing worked out great, so having someone else, a different person's point of view. I've had things that I thought were real flops that didn't work, and someone else would be like, yeah, but this came from that, So having another person to help see where things might have gone better than you were not even aware of, because you're focused on what you wanted to have happen and trying to measure that,
Great. Well, yeah, a good example. If we're focused, I tend to be very product focused. Like I got a deadline, I got a product I want to deliver. Want to get that product delivered. But that process that we've been talking about, some of the richest rewards might be in that process, and I might not be focused on it. So trying to deliver that product, but the folks that I start to ask about the effort to give me the evaluation, they might be more focused on that process and may have gained a lot from it, or may be able to tell me how we could do even more by in doing that project next time by putting a little focus on the process or creating a better environment for it. Simone, you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I really like the word reflection rather than evaluation, because the evaluation has lots of judgment attached to it. And while reflection kind of removes that kind of linear evaluation, and I think if you can reflect, you're a bit more open to looking at the process and examining your own feelings and maybe the feelings of other people within the group. So I do like the word reflection rather than evaluation, but
I love it. I love it. Again, I wouldn't be able to get in there and type it fast enough, but I'll change it for next time. Yeah.
Can I add something, Doug?
Good.
Evaluation and reflection, and it can give you material to be able to continue forwarding your work with funders and to tell your own story. And it can also be an outreach tool. I know you can pull information from evaluations for outreach as well, and develop different creative materials from it too.
Oh, yeah, that's so well said. And Samantha is going to be gathering these stories as you're reflecting for just that purpose. Well, just to celebrate. Part of reflection should be celebration, and we don't pause enough to celebrate. The other part is that, yeah, we're going to share this with potential funders. I would love to, when we get it done, march it over to the community foundation and say, look at all this great work that artists are doing in the community. I know we've got some more funders here locally who would love to support it because we've done it thoughtfully. We're creating a learning community and we're reflecting, and look at some of what we've reflected upon. And that reflection, and the funder might call it evaluation. They might ask for an evaluation plan, but you can give them a reflection plan. And one great way to think about it is, what are the numbers you can use, and then what are the stories you can tell? And if we can do both of those hand in hand, it can feel really, really good. So here are some things, like here's some examples where we might use numbers. So we've created art with the community. We've put in, we'll say we've done 40 projects at the end of this Year of the Artist, say. If you've done a project, you might say, we had a festival and we had 24 vendors and we had 200 people, and just those basic measurements. So that's one level. You can do survey work, and you can ask somebody, hey, did you talk to anybody new today? And that survey work could be pretty simple. You could have them put a check mark on their way out the door if they met somebody new. It doesn't have, you don't have to like follow up with an email. You can do these things really gently. You can do some observation too. So you can, and so the next one, cross-cultural learning, number of participants of different cultures. If you know the group that you've invited into the space, you might be able to observe that way. Community interest. So if you have a sign-up form for something, okay, well, we know we've got 20 people who are interested in doing this more. If you've got partners, they can measure things as well. So here an example is helping local businesses, the number of new customers or the number of businesses who later invited you to come with your project. So the golden key thing, they're going to measure that. They're going to know how many passports were done. They're going to know how many each business, like I went into a business today and said, hey, how many people have you had come in? And they were able to tell me right offhand. So your partners who know why you're doing a project and understand the rationale, they'll be able to give you some information just very organically. And you can do follow-up kind of surveys. So there you've got numbers. But when you have a number and you say, okay, 22 people told us they met somebody new, then that's the invitation. Because as soon as you say that, my mind goes, I already started telling myself a story with it. And I say, okay, well, here I'm picturing two people who didn't know each other. Now, who are these two people? And I start to tell myself a story with it. So you can go ahead and do the next step and tell a story. So if you had two people who engaged at your event, you can say, you can give the number and then show a picture of people doing the maypole dance, or what I'm not sure what the event's going to be, what the thing's going to be at your event. But the two people at the maypole dance, and you can have a quote from someone who says, I never knew the heritage of the maypole, but I'm not ever going to let another May Day pass without dancing around it. I'm not sure they would say that, but it'd be nice. Okay, and then so some common methods around gathering those numbers. Observation, we mentioned, surveys, questionnaires. If you're getting registration information, you can gather information from that. This is the thing. I love the idea of putting a marble into a jar to vote on a priority, or things that are kind of fun and active where people don't have to write something down, or you don't have to follow up with a survey. And these things can be very simple and they can be fun. The dots on a paper, people usually really enjoy that. And we've done some meetings where when people come into a room and we want to get some demographic information from them, we have a map of the city and they can put a dot. Actually, Polly, you might have been at an event where we did that one time. I think when the Arches event, we had people, when they came in, kind of self-identified by just putting dots on charts and maps, and talked about how old they were, or where they lived in the city, or what gender they were. And okay, so reflection, conversation. The evaluation could be you bring together your partners and you ask some general questions, and you record the responses. So that is reflection. totally, all of this is reflection, as Simone said. And we'll start now that when I get out of here, I'll go in there and I'll move it, or I'll change it, and we'll talk about reflection from now on instead of evaluation, because I like it too. All right. And with that was all the kind of content for tonight. And then I'm going to say thank you for participating, everyone. I'm going to turn off the recording, and then we're going to do a little Q&A session. Let's see here.